this satire is because actual arguments don't seem to make sense to anyone here. So I'm going to keep that going. I'm here filled with concern today as well. I'm not so much concerned for the many thousands of low-income women who over time will not have access to safe early abortions. These women are strongly represented here already today. The whiny liberals who ask what these women will do, I think the options are clear. They can raise children whether they're ready or not. My mama did. I'm sure my mama wasn't poor. Like many of these women who will at first end up suckling at the taxpayers' teeth, but with the progressive cuts we're making to social services, that won't be a problem for long. They could try to find an illegal abortion. Roe v. Wade guaranteed access, but it didn't guarantee legal access. Sure, they may have to find someone who hasn't already been licensed by the Board of Health and been working in a clinic for 2 decades, but that's just a free market reality. You get what you can pay for, right? So they can self-abort. That tends to be dangerous, but you know what isn't? I ran over a dog on the way here. He probably wasn't ready to go. I come here today representing, no, instead of all that, your liposuction constituency. It worked for me. I stand here as the voice of the voiceless, a cry of justice for all the rich women in this state who just want to lose a few pounds without doing any work. While people like those that fill this room have been debating the ins and outs and what have yous of abortions, one of the safest outpatient procedures performed in this nation, safer than giving birth, the liposuction clinics are left unregulated. Unregulated as hospitals, anyway. According to the Census Survey for Cosmetic Surgeons, a woman is 19 times more likely to die from a liposuction procedure than an abortion. 19 times. How can we, as compassionate human beings, justify spending so much time on regulating something that's already so safe for poor people, no less, while those who are succeeding in our society, the job creators, if you will, are 19 times more likely to die just because they want to get rid of their love handles? It's criminal. We have to be bold. We have to push forward for the sake of rich women all over the Commonwealth. That's what we did at the time. I know that all of you who are here support the health.
Thank you very much.
The health of women are going to.
Is Elizabeth Muscle.
Good morning. I'm a practicing OBGYN in Norfolk, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Your mission statement tells us that your job as a board is, and I quote, to provide leadership and protect the health of all Virginians. It further states, and I quote again, the citizens of the Commonwealth are your primary customer. So you and I have the same mission. We've both been charged with protecting people's health. We do it differently, but our work is equally important, and doing it fairly is the essence of our mission. I'm a physician. I have dedicated the last 30 years of my life to doing my best to take care of women. I deliver babies. I'm leaving here to go do just that. You can't get more pro-life than that. But I'm also pro-fairness, pro-choices, pro-equality, and pro-honesty. I want what is fair and reasonable for all my patients. I had planned to tell you that physicians in this Commonwealth are frustrated by legislative involvement in our physician-patient relationship, and we don't call that fair and reasonable. I was going to remind you of the letter we sent requesting you to look at alternatives for regulations as in Governor's Executive Order number 14. You can't regulate some businesses out of existence because you don't agree with them and call it fair and reasonable. But I think you know that. I think you have been overwhelmed by an agenda that encourages you to shutter businesses by edict instead of due process, and in doing so, lose sight of your mission. We all know that's not fair and reasonable. These clinics have a long record of safety. Inspect them, review them, change building codes going forward if you must. Fully disclose to the public what you find, and let the public decide where they take their business. Please don't lose sight of who you serve and what your mission is. Be fair to all the women.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the Reverend Hilda Martin, and on deck is Alice Cohan.
Good morning. I am a minister and also a licensed nurse. And I came here today to speak in behalf of the children, the babies. I came to speak in behalf of those who could not be here today themselves, the unborn. I think about them every day, and I pray every morning for the unborn babies, 365 days a year, that their lives are spared. I have related to them, I related this to Jesus when the pea crowd, he was innocent yelled out, "Crucify him, crucify him." I feel this is the same thing that we're doing with the babies today. Innocent babies, crucify them, crucify them. I'm not here to judge. I believe most of the decisions are happening based on not knowing the knowledge of the truth about babies. A fertilized egg has all the needed elements for the formation of a human body. Doctors don't reach in and put something else in them to have them to grow into human beings. They are already humans. God's word gives us a warning. There's a serious consequences to doing wrong, even murdering. Murdering causes other murders. And we have seen this in our children, young children being killed, the babies being shot in the strollers. This is a repercussion, a consequences of killing the baby. My prayer is that people here today, and also this board, and this nation will come to an understanding of the truth about abortion, and all we do from this day forward will be in their cause. Their good.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Alice Cohan, and on deck is Vicki Uroyan.
Hi, as a post-menopausal woman, nostalgic for choice, who's already spoken to you, I'd like to defer to my young friend, Emily Butler.
Hi, I'm Emily Butler. I'm a student at the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and an intern with the Feminist Majority. And I want to talk about how important this is for young women and young people in general and their access to health care. I want to tell you about my clinic experience. I wanted to get STD tested, called my doctor. I couldn't get an appointment for months. So I went to a local women's clinic. I got tested that day and had my result within 2 weeks. For young women, clinics are easy and they're accessible and they're affordable. These regulations, they threaten women, young women, college women who live away from their doctors or women who can't afford private doctors. It's imperative that we maintain access to these clinics for women's health care for young women. They provide not just abortion, but many other services that are important, including contraception, prenatal counseling and care, voluntary sterilization, breast cancer exams, pap smears, fertility counseling, adoption services, ovarian cyst treatment, STI testing and treatment, and endometriosis treatment. These regulations don't just limit my access to abortion, but they also limit access to countless other health services that I and many, many other young people need.
Thank you. Next speaker is Vicki Uroyan, and on deck is Gabrielle Schatz.
Hi everyone, I'm Vicki Uroyan. I have been in front of you all so many times that I prefer not to count at this point. The first time I came was in December of 2011, so I've been in this room more times than some people who are sitting around me right now. Let's talk here for a second. So I'm a student at VCU. I do social work, right? I had this whole speech prepared for you, but you're not going to pay attention anyway because you've shown me the past 5 times that you don't pay attention to anything I say. I worked at an independent clinic for the past 14 months. You don't care about my experiences. I've asked you to ask me questions about what my experience is like. Y'all don't care. It doesn't matter. I could be saying nothing right now and it wouldn't matter. In fact, I've asked you to look at the 177 doctors that you all blatantly ignored when you voted to take out the grandfather clause. We've asked you to think back to when these regulations were first brought up and how you all completely ignored the fact that the original doctor said, hey, you need to keep the old clinics out of the architectural requirements, not the regulations. It's a sigh of relief to see clinics, to see the Board of Health interact with clinics in a way to provide safety. No one here denies that. What we're asking you is to put aside your personal agenda, take away the I'm pro-life, I'm pro-choice, and say, do these architectural requirements make sense? Not these safety regulations, the building codes. Okay, the reason why you all are going to be able to walk away with smiling faces and say, I didn't shut down clinics, but you will if you do not seriously address this. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for shutting down abortion access, because I know, again, from the 5 other times I've testified, that you all will not pay attention to what I say. I'm also the director of lobbying for the National Order of Women here in Virginia, and I will be back.
Next speaker is Gabrielle Schatz, and on deck is Reed Humphrey.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Schatz. You've heard all the evidence to keep the abortion clinics open. And so I wonder what there is left to say to this board. I wonder what information could be shared that would actually affect your decision. Could I appeal to your stated responsibilities as the Board of Health? Could you point it out that one of the board's priorities to public health issues is, quote, the reduction of disparities in health care and health status? No, these regulations exacerbate that disparity, which has been explained so many times to this board. Could I note that a specifically listed approach the board has sworn to employ to reduce wealth disparity in health care is, quote, supporting improved access to primary care services? No, because by imposing these regulations, you're consciously and intentionally removing access to primary care. Could it be the knowledge that your actions will, not might, will result in injury, death through illegal and self-performed abortions? No, because you already know this. Why then, what is left? If a group of people bound by law and oath to do their best to improve access, prevent unnecessary harm, and reduce wealth disparity in access, instead radically decrease access, increase rate of injury and death, and exacerbate wealth disparity in access, what is there left to say? Should I thank you for revealing to me the way that things really work? That the principles this board was founded on are secondary, subservient to political and religious directives? I want to believe that's true. And you have a chance to prove it isn't. I mean, I don't want to believe it's true. And you have a chance to prove it isn't. Take it, look at yourselves tomorrow and be proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Reed Humphrey, and on deck is Emily Johnson.
I'd like to cede my spot to Frida Cathcart.
My name is Frida Cathcart. This board's purpose is to protect the health of the citizens in our Commonwealth. Since I've had the experience of sitting on a state advisory board in the Department of Health Professionals, I understand the pressure that the board feels to protect the health and safety for Virginia citizens. I appreciate your service to our Commonwealth. Each of you has taken an oath to act in accordance with the Commonwealth's Constitution. The board's decisions need to be made on the basis of facts for what is best for all Virginians. The board seemed confused at last fall's meeting by the Attorney General's instructions that the board must pass these regulations. The Attorney General has been corrected many times for his interpretation of the law by our courts. The Attorney General's cases have been rejected once by the Virginia Supreme Court and twice unanimously by the Fourth Circuit Court. The Attorney General has a proven record of fallibility when it comes to interpreting the law, and the board needs to keep that in mind when receiving instructions from the Attorney General's office. This board is not a rubber stamp. Even the fact that 58% of Virginians oppose these regulations should not come into consideration. Doctors have testified that these regulations will harm women's health because they will lose access to affordable care. We must do what is right. The only honorable action that the board must take is to reject these regulations by sending them back to the governor. Rejecting these regulations is the only way to protect the health and safety for all the women in Virginia. If your personal, political, or religious beliefs prevent you from being able to act in accordance to our Constitution on this vote, then you have the obligation to abstain or to resign. The eyes of the nation are upon you. History will be the judge.
Thank you. Next speaker is Emily Johnson, and on deck is Luantha Kerr.
Hi, I'm Emily Johnson. I'm here on behalf of the Richmond Reproductive Freedom Project. We're an abortion fund here in Virginia. We've been around for the last 10 years. I've worked with the organization for the last 4. I interview women every month who are in need of abortion services and cannot afford them, and I'm speaking on behalf of them as well today. We get a call on average every day from women who can't afford abortion. And
and we turn most of those women away because even though we dispense $2,000 a month for abortion funding, it's not enough. And these are some of the feelings that I hear from women on the phone. I hear from single mothers who are living in anxiety because they do not have the money to raise the children that they already have, and they realize that they can't afford to raise them. I talk to mothers who don't want to raise their children in violent neighborhoods. Mothers who are pawning their belongings, selling the title of their cars, asking everyone they know in desperation to find money for an abortion. Can't we trust their experiences? Can't we trust that they know? Can't we trust what they know what they're doing? Especially under those conditions. And these are the same single mothers who are told that they're a burden on society, that they are taking advantage of the social programs that are out there for them. Shutting down these clinics will probably not affect most of the people in this room because people in this room can afford to be here. Shutting down the abortion clinics are going to affect the people that don't have the money, to afford them already, and that's who will be punished.
Hey, since Tim Cuccinelli and the Board of Health are clearly very concerned about the health of women in need of abortions, but also clearly don't know how to address these concerns, I'll offer you the following suggestions. That is for the protection of women's health that would be better than TRAP. Some of them are out of the scope of your authority, but you'll get the idea. Sex education. Early and often, and instead of abstinence only, how about sex education curriculum that recognizes that people, including teenagers, actually do have sex? And so from a very young age, people need to know how to protect themselves from STDs and infections from unwanted pregnancies. This will result in fewer women ever walking through the doors of an abortion clinic. Teach men not to rape. Let that sex education include extensive consent training, mount a public education campaign that places responsibility for stopping rape on rapists, educate people from an early age that when rape happens, it's never the survivor's fault. When we stop rape, we will reduce the need for abortions. Birth control. Knowing about it is not enough. Make it easy and accessible and affordable for all forms for men and women. Everyone needs easy access to the form of birth control that works best for them. Regulate crisis pregnancy centers. Any institution operating under this name should come under scrutiny to ensure that they provide complete and accurate information to women about all of their options and available services. Develop a standardized curriculum of information that must be shared. In other words, develop targeted regulations of crisis pregnancy centers. Make abortion safe for abortion providers. Instead of wasting law enforcement resources by placing groups like Occupy or anti-war organizations on the terrorist watch list, how about
Thank you. Next speaker is Virginia Podboy, and on deck is Victoria Cobb.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. My name is Virginia Podboy, and I represent the Virginia Catholic Conference. I'm here today to urge you to adopt the proposed permanent regulations. These common sense regulations protect women that make the delicate decision to have an abortion. The countless violations that health inspectors have documented over unannounced visits prove that clearly the abortion industry is unable to self-regulate. When inspectors went on these announced visits, they documented hundreds of deficiencies in clinics across the state. Women in Virginia deserve better than receiving treatment from a physician with unwashed hands. They deserve better than unsterilized medical instruments and blood spatter on examination tables and medical trays. They expect that common sense building and architectural codes will be in place as well, because it is reasonable for EMS to be able to park an ambulance in a clinic parking lot. It is reasonable to be able to get a stretcher through a clinic door and have corridors wide enough to easily accommodate that stretcher. Our position is that abortion is not health care because it ends lives instead of healing them. But since abortion operates under the guise of health care in this country, the facilities that perform these life-ending procedures should function as proper health care facilities. That is what the women using them expect. The abortion industry needs to be held accountable in Virginia. Recent inspection reports that came out yesterday even documented cases where informed consent forms of underage girls in certain clinics were not in the documentation, which I believe is illegal in the Commonwealth. We keep hearing that these regulations are onerous and expensive, and we say Virginia women are worth it. I appreciate your time and professionalism through this process. I know it's been a difficult one and one that's lasted several years. I urge you to finish the job and adopt these permanent abortion facility regulations.
Thank you. Next speaker is Victoria Cobb, and on deck is Joe Blanton.
Victoria Cobb, President of the Family Foundation of Virginia. When this process began almost 2 years ago, this board was told that health and safety standards for abortion centers in Virginia weren't necessary. The centers were clean and safe, we were told. There was a reason, and we found this out, and the industry representatives fought for years to stop inspections required by you and the standards you adopted. Initial announced inspections were telling well over 100 health and safety violations found. Bloody instruments, bloody patient tables, unsterilized and improperly maintained equipment, untrained staff, misuse of drugs, poor oversight, just to name a few. But then we were told by the industry that the centers were licensed anyway, so we weren't to worry about everything, it must be okay. Of course, they failed to mention that in order to receive licensing, they had to submit plans of correction, promising to fix all the problems that had been found. In testimony before this board last fall, the industry told us again that the problems had been fixed. Some of those same representatives came to the General Assembly this year during testimony on bills that would have repealed the standards, and again said the deficiencies had been fixed. But now we know this isn't true either. This stack is of more recent follow-up inspections of abortion centers that continue to show dozens and dozens of the same deficiencies. Not cleaned up, not fixed, ongoing. Even after submitting plans of correction, these deficiencies they have chosen not to clean up. What are they waiting for? They're waiting, hoping that you will cave to the bullying tactics, hoping that you will let them off the hook. And the follow-up inspections even showed violations of not just the safety standards, but the law. We have several violations of crown consent laws in here and ultrasound laws. This industry simply cannot be believed. It cannot be trusted. It has covered up its inadequate health and safety record long enough. The board owes it to the people of Virginia and the women of Virginia to protect the health and safety of Virginians. These reports are of existing abortion centers that want to be grandfathered so they don't have to clean up their act. We ask you to follow through the regulations today.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Joe Blanton, and on deck is Sandy Adams.
I noticed that Senator Martin today. I've got a letter here from some of his colleagues in the Senate I'd like to read. Dear board members, we have learned that you were informed by the Office of Attorney General Cambridge Mellon that you violated your statutory authority in adopting the regulations of the licensure of abortion facilities at the June 15, 2012 Board of Health. The Attorney General's office is incorrect in their interpretation. The Attorney General's office's position is that the proposed 12 VAC 5-412-370 conflicted with Virginia Code 32.1-127.001. But that section has never required existing facilities to meet new construction codes. And it was not the intent of the General Assembly when it enacted those provisions. In fact, while the code states that the board issue regulations for healthcare facilities, and I quote, consistent with the current edition of the 2012 guidelines design and construction of hospital and healthcare facilities, the 2010 guidelines clearly state that there are intended as minimum standards for designing and constructing new healthcare facility projects. Your June 15th amendment to differentiate between new and existing facilities was consistent with the guidelines and clearly was within your statutory authority the General Assembly has given you. Sincerely, Senator Craig Deeds, District 25, Senator John Edwards, District 21, Senator Barbara Bola, District 31, Senator Mark Perrin, District 33, Senator Janet Howell, Senator District 32, Senator Louise Lucas, District 18, Senator David Marsden, District 37, Senator Henry Marsh, District 16, Senator David Donald Buchan, District 9, and Senator Philip Puckett, District 38.
Good morning. My name is Eileen Davis, and I've been a registered professional nurse since 1976. And I stand before you today because I want to qualify something. I heard Senator Martin say when this began, and I quote, "I want to see the same kind of protection as someone seeking care in any other outpatient facility." If that is indeed what Senator Martin wants you to do, then I expect you to take these regulations and I expect you to apply them to liposuction, colonoscopy clinics, oral surgeons, plastic surgeons, and crisis pregnancy centers. Because unless you do that, the actions of this board would be capricious and would be singling out clinics that you are talking about today. To do otherwise is against your oath of office, and you should resign before you use this office in such a capricious way, because you would not be doing what you're supposed to be doing. If you truly believe that you need to regulate outpatient clinics, then regulate them all. Make the dental oral surgeons, make the colonoscopy clinics who are giving anesthesia, make the liposuction, as that gentleman pointed out, make them comply to these regulations. Make everyone comply to these regulations. And with regards to the people here who are citing the outliers of care and the problems, frankly, you could go into any of these clinics. You could go into colonoscopy clinics and find outdated medication. I'm sure there's a list as thick as the one that Victoria Cobb had of other clinics in this Commonwealth that have plan of corrections in place that you are continuing to license. Unless you're going to treat them the same way, you're acting out of your authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Candy Graham, and on deck is Marie Stella.
Thank you. Candy Graham is my real name, by the way. It has been for almost 40 years of marriage. I am a mother, a grandmother, a homemaker, and caregiver for my elderly parents who live with us. I'm fortunate to be here today representing other mothers who can't be here because they're caring for their young children, women who don't have the transportation, who can't afford a day off of work. These are the women who rely on the services that these clinics provide. The regulations that require expensive architectural renovations have nothing to do with health and safety. Nothing to do with health and safety, and everything to do with politics. At one point, your body recommended grandfathering in the existing clinics. Then the AG began his threats and bullying. I am here today to let you know that we will not let these clinics close. We will take legal action. We will turn out on election day. We will raise the money, take out loans, whatever it takes. We will stand up and we will fight back. We will not be denied.
Next speaker is Marie Stella. On deck is Charlotte Tadeos.
And I think the first time I came here, I was so impressed with the work that the Board of Health was doing, working the clinics to fight HIV, working for disease control. But I was so impressed, I went to Dr. Rumley and told her about how highly I thought the Board of Health and how proud I was to have them represent me. But unfortunately, that has really changed. I don't understand. I looked at your mission statement, and I don't understand where the Attorney General comes into telling the Board of Health what to do. As far as I can see, the Board of Health works for me. They work for my safety, to make sure that everything that's my water is clean, my air is clean, and for everyone else here. You're not here to serve the Attorney General. The Attorney General's mission, on the other hand, is to work for you. When you made a decision on the trap regulations, it was up to the Attorney General to tell you that he would support you, not to deny you service. And at that point, either the governor or the Justice Department should have come in and said, we'll support you. I don't know what's going on here. The Attorney General in the Catholic Herald last week, or last month, said that his position in the Attorney General is to support his bully pulpit. Is that what you want to do? It's because what you're talking about here are services that deal with parking lots and closets. And I can assure you, there's no closet that you could build that's big enough to hide the Attorney General's disdain for women disdain for sex. He can't hide behind it. We should have known this the minute he covered the breasts of the virtuous woman on our emblem, and now that he's got trapped pretty much in his pocket, he wants to control how married women and men have sex, where they have sex, what they do. This is outrageous. We have to be considering what is good for the American people, for the Virginian women.
Thank you very much.
I would like to say that I'm interested in...
Ma'am, no.
She ceded her time.
No, do not.
I am not here, I don't consider Planned Parenthood, I don't consider these clinics as abortion clinics. When I was 27, I was working in a public school system in Florida. I didn't have health care as a teacher. I went to Planned Parenthood to get a pap smear. It was an irregular pap smear. If I didn't have Planned Parenthood, I wouldn't have been able to be treated for that. I'm alive today because of Planned Parenthood, or so many other women. I came to this board and I heard Dr. McCluskey say that she operates under a cloud of confusion. She didn't read the trap laws, and the AG informed her what they were. I heard another doctor say that she didn't care if it took an hour and a half for a woman to go to a Planned Parenthood clinic when she can go to an emergency room. You all should be outraged that any human being has to take an hour and a half to get health care. This is what you're supposed to do, provide health care for people. Not provide, but make sure their services are available, and to compare the price of a clinic to the price of the emergency room is really naive. We have got to provide health. We don't trust you anymore. I don't trust you when you're going to control how pure my water is. I don't trust that you're going to control whether uranium mining will hurt us. And that's all your job. I don't trust you because you don't care for me. You don't care for women. You think the bully pulpit of the Attorney General is more important than the safety and health of women. For those people who feel they're have religious issues, go to see Steve Martin. You'll find out that if people had better health care, if they had jobs, if they had affordable housing, they'd want to have children. They wouldn't be concerned about abortions. They wouldn't be concerned about birth control. It's not your job. It's theirs. Thank you.